What's going on, guys? Thank you so much for coming by. Welcome to episode 5 of our depth chart review series. So today is the final day assessing the offensive side of the ball for the Miami Dolphins coming into the 2020 season. And we're taking a look at the depth chart for ESPN Online. So today I've got something special for you guys. I mentioned it in the last video, and I'm really excited to bring this guy back. We've got an NFL analyst on the line. His name is Todd Delker. And if you haven't seen the video where I did interview him before, I'll throw it up right now for you. So Todd, thank you so much for stopping by. I really appreciate you taking the time to come by again and talk about the Dolphins. How you doing?
Doing good, man. Hey, it was a lot of fun last time. So let's do it. Let's look at the offensive line. Probably the one area that I have assessed this team more than any other position.
Absolutely, yeah. And I know that you and I have taken some time to speak about the Dolphins and what they're looking like coming into the 2020 season. And we spent a lot of that time talking about the offensive line. So just to start it off, if you wouldn't mind just kind of giving us your overall view and how you feel about the offensive line that's going to be protecting our quarterbacks and helping the run in the 2020 season.
Well, I think that it goes without saying it's going to be better than it was last year. But I don't think it's going to be nearly as good as most people seem to think, and I don't think it's going to be that much better. I think that overall the Dolphins really did not do a good job of addressing what was the biggest problem on the team last year with the offensive line. I do think they improved. They did sign some guys. But I just, for me, I would like to have seen them put a better foot forward, and I just don't think they did that.
Yeah, absolutely. And we did speak briefly about this in the last video that I had you on, where we were talking a little bit about guys coming into free agency that we would have liked to see the Dolphins target. But that's in the past, and hindsight is always 2020. So now we get to address and kind of look at the offensive line coming into this season and what we think these guys bring to the table. So if you want to just kind of go position by position, first off, we're looking at left tackle, and that's Austin Jackson. So how do you feel about Austin Jackson? How secure do you feel in him being able to protect the quarterback his rookie year?
Not very. Again, I think it's going to be better than, guys like Julian Davenport. I think he is a step up from that. But I'm not sure because, here we're talking about a guy who has tremendous upside. Very, very young, very athletic, very talented, very smart. So don't misunderstand me. I like Austin Jackson, the player, and I think in the future he's going to be a pretty solid offensive lineman for this team. But you can't look at Austin Jackson. It is impossible to assess him coming into the NFL without looking at the times he played against other guys who came into the NFL with him. And the game that always stands out is against A.J. Epineza, where he just struggled. I mean, he struggled the majority of that game. Epineza kind of had his way with Austin Jackson. And I think the last time I was on with you, we talked about, Epineza's a guy he's going to have to face twice a year now because Epineza was drafted into this division. So when you think about Austin Jackson, you have to think, wow, tremendous upside. And in a few years, he's going to be really, really good. And I think that is the case. But this year, I just don't know. I think there's a big learning curve when you go from college to pro. And offensive line, even though it might not seem like it's a skill set position, left tackle is a skill set position. Does Jackson have these skills? Yeah, he does. But he's going to be facing A.J. Epineza or guys like A.J. Epineza every single week.
Right, yeah, I agree. And I think that for any NFL team, barring any sort of, absolute superstar, you don't usually want to have a rookie left tackle starting from the beginning of the season. There's so much of a learning curve coming into the NFL. And like I said, unless if it's a guy coming out like Andrew Thomas, Tristan Wirfs, Jedrick Wills, guys like that who are really just the top echelon of linemen, you really don't want to have a rookie left tackle starting. You need to protect your quarterback. So there's lots of upside with Jackson, but he does need a lot of coaching and improvement to really succeed at the next level. So looking past Austin Jackson, we brought in Ereck Flowers on a 5-year deal. So can we talk about him a little bit? I do have the stats pulled up really quick. 5 penalties last year he gave up, and then gave up 2 sacks with a 64.2 Pro Football Focus grade. So not a bad season, but certainly not a Pro Bowl. So what are your feelings on Ereck Flowers?
Honestly, when we talked last time, it wasn't a very high opinion. I think I said things like, here's a guy who's on his 4th team in 5 years, that he's a journeyman, things like that. But I will tell you, the more I've watched film of this guy as a Washington Redskin, the more I like him. In fact, I thought he had an exceptional season, an underrated season last year. I know that the Redskins wanted to re-sign him in free agency. I just don't think that they were able to come to an agreement with a salary. And I think there was one report I heard from a colleague of mine in up in Maryland, up in that area, said something along the lines of it wasn't so much about the finances as that there were people thought, is this kind of a 1 year thing? You know, he had not had a good career. But I watched film, and I mean, that's a bulk of what I like to do. If you want to watch really good film of Ereck Flowers, watch him play the Dolphins. He had an amazing game. I mean, he was mauling good guys. And so the more I watch film of Flowers, the more I read about him, the more I do the research, I like him. And I think it wound up being a pretty nice addition. I think he's going to be the best offensive lineman on this team, and potentially a guy that could help a guy like Austin Jackson on the left side. And the reason I say that is because, remember, Flowers at University of Miami was a first round left tackle. So he knows the position. Even though he didn't do well in the NFL, he might be able to help a guy like Jackson. So I think Flowers winds up being the best offensive lineman on this team.
Yeah, and I agree with you there. He has the most experience. He's an experienced guy. He has had a lot of starting time in the NFL too. And like you said, coming in as an absolute bust at left tackle in New York, sliding over to left guard really showed a lot of promise. He played significantly better as a guard than a tackle. And the thing that I like about him is he's just a huge guy at 315 pounds. I mean, he's a big dude. He can eat up a lot of that space in between the center and left tackle. So he kind of provides almost like a brick wall of a human to get through if you're on the defensive line. So I can see an improvement yet again from left guard coming again into this season. So Ereck Flowers, I agree with you, is probably the best offensive lineman that we have at the moment. But looking to the future, that definitely could be taken over by someone like Robert Hunt, Austin Jackson. So we'll see what goes on with those guys. But moving on to, go ahead, sorry.
I'm sorry. It's just, no, my bad. It's just worth mentioning. In the film that I have watched, Flowers seems to be substantially better against the run than he is against the pass, which at the guard position is not a bad thing. Just to touch on that.
Sure. Now, okay, moving on to our center. That's going to be Ted Karras. Brought him in from New England. He gave up 3 penalties last year, 2 sacks, and a 64.5 Pro Football Focus grade. Again, kind of just in the middle, not great, not terrible. Back up behind David Andrews for a while until last year when he started most of the season, and he played pretty well. How do you feel about bringing him into the team?
Well, I think, again, it's an improvement. It's a tough position. Anytime you can get a guy who can play center and guard, it's a good thing. So to bring in Karras is a good thing. I don't know that I'm sold on Karras yet. The only reason he started with the Patriots was because of the injury to Andrews. The thing that jumps off the page when I think about Ted Karras is that last year, even though he had a pretty good year, you just gave his stats, he was surrounded by 2 excellent offensive linemen in Joe Thuney and Shaq Mason. I mean, 2 guys who get it done. And so they were probably able to help out. I've not looked at a lot of film on Karras, but I know this. I know he was drafted, in the 6th round. I know that initially he did not make the Patriots team and was cut. He was signed onto their practice squad. He did stay on the team, to his credit, but the only reason he started or played was because of injury. And the Patriots did offer him a 2-year deal worth more money than to come to the Dolphins. And you might be saying, well, why? Why would he do that? Why would he go from New England, who's offering him a 2-year deal, paying more money than to come to Miami and take a 1-year? And there's different reports. I've heard a $3 million season, or $3 million for 1 year, or $4 million for 1 year. Either way, why would he do that? And, the mindset is he wants to start, and this will give him the best opportunity to start. So that tells me that with Andrews potentially coming back in New England, that Ted Karras did not believe he was going to be starting again this year. So he wanted to start. He thought the Dolphins gave him the best opportunity to start. They bring him in. I think he's going to be, again, better than what we had last year, but not a whole lot better.
Agreed. Yeah, and I think center above all positions on the offensive line really does depend on your guards. You need a lot of help for your center.
Absolutely.
Unless if he's all pro talent caliber center, you're gonna need good guys on either end of him to kind of help bolster up the middle of the offensive line. So Ted Karras is definitely a step up. But how much of a step up is he going to be? We don't really know, especially because of the guards on either end of him. So looking forward to right guard. I'm actually going to few guys into this one just because there's really some uncertainty, at least in my mind. And I didn't understand ESPN's depth chart for right guard. So they've got Shaq Calhoun as the starter at right guard. I am not a fan of that. 2 penalties given up, 2 sacks given up, a 44.2 Pro Football Focus grade, was one of the worst offensive linemen in the league when he was on the field last year. So you've got him. You've got someone like Michael Dieter, who gave up 5 penalties and 6 sacks with an even worse grade, 42.5. It was his rookie year, but still pretty down on that one. And then you also have the rookie that we drafted in the fourth round, Solomon Kinley, who could also step up there and fill in the right guard. So at right guard, I feel like we have a handful of guys who could plug in, but it's really kind of up to whether they're able to play that well or not.
I think I'll be surprised if Michael Dieter is not a starter. I think you have a guy who has been on this team. You have a guy who understands the Miami Dolphins locker room. You have a guy who I think probably feels he has something to prove. And I think long term that I liked Kinley. When they drafted Kinley, I was pretty excited about that. As a really nice late round pick. Is he ready to jump in and start on the offensive line at the NFL level? I don't know, but I think I'll be floored if Dieter is not the starter. And I think it's a good thing. I think on an improved offensive line, and this is improved, I think he's going to have Karras now to his left, and I guess we'll talk about the right tackle coming up here in a second. We might see a different Michael Dieter this year than we've seen. I just got a feeling that there's going to be an element of I've got something to prove, and this might be the year that he does that.
I agree. Yeah, and he should have a chip on his shoulder. He was drafted in the 2nd round last year and a terrible rookie year outing. So I really feel like he's got to come in this year and ball out, or else he's going to be in jeopardy of losing a job. So Dieter needs to play well. And like you said, I think the additional talent that's been added around him could definitely help him play a little bit better. The scary thing to me was that I saw 6 sacks given up last year as a guard. That was a little surprising as a left guard, I think is what he played last year. So 6 sacks as a guard is a red flag for sure, but the added talent could definitely help him out there. So moving on, right tackle, another rookie here, that's going to be Robert Hunt. He is a big, mauler, mean, nasty dude. I am excited to see him on the field with lots and lots of versatility. What do you think about Robert Hunt?
I think he's going to be good. I think that he might be the guy that we're all talking about mid-season or, as training camp progresses and saying, how did this guy not go higher? He does have that mean streak. He is a big guy. He's been consistently good. I like everything about him. The best thing I like is that the Dolphins drafted him in a later round, so it didn't cost a lot to get him. I think, again, you're talking now, and we'll really think about it in the scenario that you just played out, and I agree that that's likely what it will look like. You have 2 rookies that are anchoring this offensive line, and I don't like that. You have a rookie in Jackson at the left tackle, and now you have another rookie in Hunt. And remember, some scouts had him pegged as a guard at the NFL level. And so when you think about Hunt, yeah, I like Hunt a lot. Again, a guy who's never played it down in the NFL is going to be protecting certainly if Tua plays, he's going to be protecting Tua's blind side. Now, I don't think Tua's going to play. I think this is Fitzpatrick's job all year. But, I just don't love the idea of having 2 rookies at both ends of that offensive line.
I totally agree. Yeah, if I'm Ryan Fitzpatrick or even if Josh Rosen sees the field this year, I'm terrified. I'm scared with 2 rookie tackles. I mean, it would be one thing if it was, a tackle and a guard or 2 guards, interior guys, but to have 2 rookies and your exteriors, your tackles protecting you against the best pass rushers in the game, especially with the talent in the AFC East. We've got a lot of talented pass rushers coming at these 2 guys. So it is cause for concern, but so on this series, we move on. after we kind of assess each guy and talk about what we're looking at on the depth chart, what we've done through this series is so I give my personal grade of what I think this position looks like, and I'd like to get your opinion on what you would grade the offensive linemen coming into the 2020 season.
I think it's a C- in a good year. I think if they all play above their potential, I think you're looking at a C to a C-.
Yeah, I agree. So, and that's something that I did spend some time thinking about. I actually had them pegged as more of a D+ type of team in the Ds. Just, I think initially out of the gate, there's going to be a lot of struggles, especially because of the limited preseason that's coming up in the NFL, limited camps, stuff like that, just because of everything going on in the world. There's going to be a lot less time for these guys to gel, get used to each other, get on the field. So I think it's going to be rocky at first, but with room for improvement. And I think guys like Austin Jackson and Robert Hunt, the sky's the limit for those guys. I think they've got a lot of room to improve and a lot of talent. So in the future, could be looking way higher than, in the D or C range. But for now, I totally agree with you there.
We'll see. I mean, we keep hearing there's going to be a season. Who knows what that's going to look like potentially. But I agree. It's a unique set of circumstances really think about this. You potentially have 4 new guys on an offensive line. I mean, the only remaining starter is potentially Dieter. That's if he starts. And usually that spells disaster. Usually when you've got an offensive lineman gathering like that, they need to have some cohesion. They need to have played together, and that will not be the case with these guys. And so they have training camp to work on it. Remember, we also have a new offensive line coach in Steve Marshall. We have a new offensive coordinator. It's just an entirely new offense, frankly. And so it's going to be an interesting season, assuming we have one.
Yep, agreed. So, all right, Todd, thank you so much for stopping by. I really appreciate you taking the time to come on again and kind of give your opinions and thoughts on the Dolphins coming up. So, as we move forward, this is the last video for the offensive side of the ball. I'd be really interested to see some of your opinions on the defensive side as well.
Sure. You let me know when. And again, I think it's worth mentioning. I think this offense is improved. And I know I mentioned this the last time we talked. We're talking about that in the Greer-Flores era, they've only got 1 year under their belt. And that 1 year was a good year. Nobody expected this team to win too much, if any at all.
Right.
I mean, the tank to a concept, and they won 5 of their last 9 games. That's above 500. So they finished really strong. And I think they drafted, I know that you and I have talked about this draft, and we were a little bit disappointed, certainly with the first round of this draft. But the more I sit on it, the more I think about it, and the more I process through it, they're going for a certain type of player. And they want that locker room presence. They want a guy who's trying to prove himself, and they're getting a lot of people like that. So I think the offense is improved. We have a much better running back situation, and I'm super excited. Like, the one guy I'm most excited about, there's 2 guys on this offense that I can't wait to see play, and that is Devontae Parker and Matt Breida. I know that they're flashy guys, they're playmakers. I'm super excited to see what kind of season can Devontae Parker have with another year under his belt playing with Fitzpatrick, with an offensive line that will likely give them a little more time for protection, and a running game that can maybe take some of that pressure off. So there's some things to be excited about when you think about this Dolphins offense.
Absolutely. Yeah, there is definite silver lining on this team. The offensive side of the ball is the weaker part of the team, but there is silver lining. There are some players to look forward to, and hopefully this offensive line is able to form some sort of chemistry through the season to where we can provide a little bit extra time for the receivers and the quarterback, and then also open up some holes for our new running backs that we just brought in too. So, Todd, thanks so much for stopping by. I really appreciate you, and I look forward to having you on again.
You got it, Ryan. Take care.
Thanks. You too. All right, guys, so that is the show. Thank you so much for stopping by. I really hope you enjoyed this episode, bringing on special guest Todd Delker, again, NFL analyst, really cool guy, and I'm super excited to be able to, interact with him a little bit more, bring him on the show so that he can give his opinion for you guys, but also for me. It's actually really cool to talk to somebody on his level of expertise, where I'm really kind of just starting out, and I'm, kind of getting used to putting my thoughts out there, and it's good to talk to somebody who's been doing this for a while. So So I hope you guys enjoyed it. And if you did, please leave a like, comment down below. Let me know what you think of his opinion and mine, and we'll go from there. So thanks a ton for watching, guys. Hopefully you have a great rest of your day. Enjoy your weekend coming up. And as always, fins up.